the like more.
Okay. Here are my cards. There's my grandpa. There's my mom. There's Kylie. And there's Chris.
Don't forget the dog.
There's my dog.
Don't have any sleeping, do you?
No. Thinking your last day with that one person that you just wish you could spend one more day with. I bet you can remember that last day to a T. When someone says any day can be your last day, you never really pay it much thought until that day actually becomes your last day. And you're stuck at the end just reminiscing about all the great memories you two once shared. It was one of the first beautiful spring days after a horrid winter. If you couldn't resist not having the windows cracked or be outside, in my brother Robbie's case, he was coming from his house to our mom's house on his motorcycle. Immediately after Robbie came to the house and he came inside the house, nothing but joy filled the whole entire room. It was our tradition that every time we would see each other, he would give me the biggest bear hug and kiss when he walked into the room. I was always so short, so his cologne would just suffocate me, and to this day, Giorgio Armani is still my favorite perfume. There never failed to be a time when Robbie didn't have a huge, bright, cheesy smile. If you were ever in the slightest bad mood, seeing his smile would make your mood do a complete 360. And the day was almost here. He was finally in the final stretch, graduating college and getting his first career-related job. Finally, he had just finished up his internship that he busted his back at, and it had paid off. Between his internship and school, as well as taking care of his family and his huge social life, he somehow managed to still pull off the dean's list every quarter. Robbie was just so excited to get his papers so he could officially start his first career-related job, and he was also a very, very stubborn person. So we fought to keep him for lunch, and we fought as hard as we could, but in the end, he ended up winning, and he went on his motorcycle to go get his papers. While Robbie was off getting his papers, since it was such a gorgeous spring day, the flowers were starting to bloom, the smell of the fresh-cut grass was trouncing in our faces, my grandpa, mom, and I decided to go to Ace Hardware to get some flowers for Mother's Day. Who knew that the moment before Robbie left would be the last time we would see him and the last time we ever heard his voice. Everything was great. We were all giggling, enjoying each other's company until we pulled in the circle and saw a cop car in our driveway. The anticipation we had was unbelievable from the short couple of seconds it took to get from the top of our circle to our driveway. We were all almost for certain that it was my other brother, being a crazy teenager and getting into teenage mischief. All the cop told us was that our Robbie had been into a motorcycle accident and we needed to get down to Creighton as soon as possible. Having to drive from 144th and Center to Creighton University without knowing anything but your brother had gone into a motorcycle accident is the worst feeling ever. The air filled with dead silence in the car as our minds were racing, praying for the best. My brother was a daredevil and had broken his arm one too many times, so we thought he was just going to have to get his arm amputated off. Finally, we had just pulled into Creighton emergency room and the anticipation was finally over. The car couldn't get parked fast enough. We were all dying at the jump to race out of the car and get inside the hospital room to see our Robbie. We immediately knew it was a pretty horrific car accident, seeing all the ambulances in the emergency room entrance. The horrendous thought of what if my brother didn't make it, he passed away, immediately popped into my head. We were sitting in this little room, just my grandpa, my mom, and I, just staring at the green walls with Christian sayings all over the walls, waiting for the nurse to come talk to us, and we were just praying that Robbie was okay. The moment we found out the story of what happened during the accident, I immediately got a knife stabbed into my chest. I couldn't believe what the nurse was telling us. My brother was the toughest human I knew. Nothing could possibly strike him down. Robbie was going eastbound and a man was going westbound, turning left. He failed to yield and hit right into my brother on his motorcycle. Granted, the man got out of his car as well as everybody who saw it. They instantly began to pray for him, and even though it was such a tragic event, it was comforting to know that there were people rooting for him. This isn't anything anybody should have to go through, especially at the young age of 14 years old. And the moment we found out he had passed away, the nurse had left and we were still stuck in the dark little green room with brown chairs, waiting for the doctor to come and talk to us now. The doctor came in and he had the worst look on his face. Immediately I knew it wasn't good. Hearing they did everything they could and he just wasn't able to survive his injuries. Immediately I dropped out of my seat, curled up into a ball on the floor, and having to go see the horrific sight and say our final goodbyes to him. They tried to save Robbie for 2 hours, and his aorta tore, but just like his stubborn self, he fought to stay alive for 2 hours afterwards when he should have passed away right as it tore. The wonderful doctors and nurses tried every life-saving technique they knew for a little over an hour. The emotions we felt as we were walking out of Creighton with a lobby full of people for Robbie, and having to have my broken mother and my grandpa carry me out of the emergency room to a room full of his closest friends, trying to keep it together so everybody didn't hear me shrieking like a banshee. These are all terrible, awful things that you have to face after the passing, and even especially at 14 years old. If he had only stayed for lunch, that 20 minutes would have saved his life and all of our hearts. Now all we're left with are memories. From that moment on, we were all just left with the memories of the wonderful, amazing person Robbie was. This was definitely the worst day of my entire life. It just didn't seem real that I wouldn't get my huge bear hugs and kisses from my big brother anymore. Through this tragic event, this day taught me a lot of valuable life lessons. To name a few, I realized that 1, any day can be your last day with your family member, so make sure it's cherished. And never leave with hard feelings. 2, never ever leave someone you love with hard feelings. No fight is worth leaving on bad terms just as shown above, it very well could be their last day here with you. So next time you get into a bicker with someone that you care about, just think back onto the speech and how those could very well be your last words. You'll live to regret it. So love a little harder and hug a little more.